This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm George Thomas. We begin with the latest on the growing fight over President Trump's Supreme Court nominee and a closer look at her views on the court and abortion. The Senate has just 2 weeks to get ready for her nomination hearings, and as Heather Sells reports, it is working overtime.
President Trump's third pick for the high court is receiving praise from conservatives and even some liberals for her strong intellect and legal mind. Senator Sass calling her a brilliant legal thinker, a highly respected jurist, says Senator Chuck Grassley. And even Harvard Law School's Noah Feldman calling her brilliant and highly qualified to serve. Barrett is a federal judge and a former clerk for Justice Antonin Scalia.
I clerked for Justice Scalia more than 20 years ago, but the lessons I learned still resonate. His judicial philosophy is mine, too. A judge must apply the law as written.
And as CBN's David Brody pointed out, her views on abortion are clear. She doesn't see the high court overturning Roe v. Wade.
And I think the question is how much freedom the court is willing to let states have in regulating abortion. I think the question of, the court has held that in some circumstances, states can render partial birth abortion illegal, very late-term abortions. I think that's the kind of thing that would change. I don't think the core case, the Roe's core holding that, women have a right to an abortion, I don't think that would change.
If confirmed, she would give conservatives a 6-3 majority on the court. Democrats are working hard to paint her as far right and a threat to health care.
There's no mystery about what's happening here. President Trump is trying to throw out the Affordable Care Act.
Senator Cory Booker is even suggesting that she recuse herself.
Because if she does not recuse herself, I fear that the court will be further delegitimized.
Right now, Democrats simply lack the votes to block her nomination.
We can slow it down, perhaps a matter of hours, maybe days at the most, but we can't stop the outcome.
Barrett has already been vetted, so her nomination could move quickly. Senate Republicans hope to hold a final vote before the November election. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thank you, Heather. I'm joined now by JENNA ELLIS, legal counsel to the president and senior legal advisor to his campaign. JENNA, as always, great to have you back on the broadcast. Democrats are putting up a fight, but it's not expected, as Heather mentioned, that they can block this nomination. Do you expect that Amy Coney Barrett will be confirmed before the election?
I do, and I think that Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and the other Republican senators understand the importance of an expeditious confirmation, and with the hearings beginning October 12th, there's plenty of time, and this is not unprecedented at all in United States history. This isn't a rush job. This is simply fulfilling their constitutional obligations.
Her confirmation would give, as you know, conservatives on the court a strong majority. I'm curious, what kinds of key cases do you expect that would make a difference on?
Well, I think that all of the issues, particularly the social issues that Democrats for the last 50 and 60 years have had an activist majority. And so what this is doing is returning Article 3 and the Supreme Court to its original intent of being conservative, genuinely having the judicial branch not be policymakers, not be lawmakers, but rather faithfully interpreting and applying the U.S. Constitution. And so why Democrats are so upset about this is because they have used the court and they've used it out of context for the last 50 and 60 years to advance their own policy agenda in a way that is absolutely unconstitutional. So this is going to impact a lot of decisions, I think, but what it's going to do is foreclose that opportunity for Democrats. They're going to have to actually obey the Constitution now, and that's good for all Americans.
Your quick thoughts on Barrett's nomination?
I think she's an excellent choice. The president, of course, said it so well at the Rose Garden on Saturday that she is a wonderful, exceptional jurist, and I think that she is going to take care to faithfully apply the Constitution. And she's someone who clearly wants to be a judge, not a policymaker or a politician, and that's exactly what we need to look at in all of our jurists throughout the federal bench. And I'm so grateful to President Trump for keeping his promise to the American people. We need 4 more years of him being able to nominate and appoint conservative originalist judges throughout the federal bench. This impacts religious liberty. This impacts all of our first freedoms. We need to make sure to have faithful jurists on the bench.
Switching gears, tomorrow night is the first presidential debate and the first time we'll be able to see both candidates together. What are you hoping for?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that Chris Wallace will actually ask Joe Biden some of the harder questions. I mean, President Trump has been very transparent. He sat for a lot of different interviews over the last few months. Joe Biden has called a lid at, 8:30 sometimes. He's not been willing to put out his list of Supreme Court potential picks. He's not been willing to answer policy questions on whether he approves or disapproves of court packing. And so I hope that Chris Wallace will ask him some of those tough questions so that the American people can truly see where he genuinely stands. But President Trump, of course, is going to have fun with this. He loves talking to the American people, and so I anticipate that he'll do an excellent job. And this is really about looking at whether or not Joe Biden will actually show up and be transparent.
Over the weekend, Jenna, the New York Times published a report on the president's taxes saying he paid no income taxes in 10 of the previous 15 years, mainly because he lost more money than he made. What's your response to this?
Yeah, well, the chief counsel there, Alan Garten, put out a statement, and I won't go further than that, but basically saying that the Times piece was not based on reliable sources. We asked for their sources. They didn't give those. And so, President Trump has paid millions in taxes, and that statement from Alan Garten should have been considered by the New York Times. This is just another political hit piece.
Jenna, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast. Jenna Ellis, legal counsel of the president and senior legal advisor to his campaign. As always, thanks for coming on the show. You're welcome. As we've reported, the gloves are already off with Barrett's confirmation process. FaithWire's Trey Goins-Phillips joins us now with more on that and the prayer effort for the nominee and the process. Trey, great to have you on the broadcast. The last U.S. Supreme Court nomination was a politically divided, vicious battle. Are you seeing this one shaping up that way?
Yeah, absolutely. We've already, even a week before the president announced Judge Amy Coney Barrett as his selection, the attacks were already starting to come in. If you remember last week, so in 2017, when Judge Barrett was up, or Professor Barrett at the time was up to become a federal judge. During that confirmation process, she was attacked for her faith by Senator Feinstein. And last week, Senator Feinstein said she's not sure that she said she may go down that path again. She's not sure she'll avoid that. And Senator Hirono of Hawaii has said similarly, religion should not be off limits. So I think a lot of Democratic senators are gearing up to go there all over again.
Barrett, as you know, Trey, is a strong conservative Catholic and is already being attacked for her faith. Does this present a double standard by her political opponents?
I think it absolutely does. Like I said about Senator Feinstein, if you remember, she accused Barrett of the dogma living loudly within her, and she said that's of concern. Well, just like the dogma may live loudly within Judge Barrett, meaning she takes her faith seriously, so did the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was an icon of progressive politics, and she also took her faith seriously. In fact, her Judaism informed a lot of her policymaking, a lot of her life choices, both personally and professionally. A lot of lawmakers, Democrats and Republicans, are Catholic, Jewish, Protestant, evangelical. And when we see the faith of progressives talked about, it's usually talked about as a positive thing. They're lauded for that. But with conservatives, it's often used as a cudgel, as it's being used right now with Judge Barrett.
What can you tell us about the specific prayer efforts that are underway for Judge Barrett?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people are just, as I wrote in a piece at faithwire.com, are preparing to pray not only for Judge Barrett, her family, their 7 children, her husband, Jesse, just praying for strength for them as they undergo this process, because whether you're conservative or liberal, it's obviously a difficult process. And in this cultural climate, it seems to be even more difficult. So I think there's prayers for strength for her family, prayers for wisdom for our lawmakers, both Democrat and Republican, and just prayers for our country right now. We're in a divided time, and praying for peace and wisdom for the American voter as they prepare to see this, and obviously prepare in the weeks to come to vote in what is already a contentious presidential election. Yeah,
and I'm sure to get contentious even more in the weeks ahead. We are also coming off of the heels of 2 major prayer events in our nation's capital that we'll hear about shortly. But overall, what do you think is on God's heart in all of this that's happening today?
Look, I think obviously Christians have a responsibility to play a role in the public sphere. We have a responsibility to be politically active and to advance kingdom principles. But I think at the end of the day, what's on God's heart is not a political revival. I think what's on his heart is a spiritual revival. So I think he's wanting to have more hearts turned to him. I think he wants, obviously, to see people on an individual level live lives that are morally upright, live lives that are reflective of God's character. And that will play out in our politics. So I think first and foremost, like I said, God is eager to see more people come to him, and that'll play out in our culture from there.
Okay, on that note, we'll have to leave it there. Trey, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast. Trey Goins-Phillips with faithwire.com. You're most welcome. You can catch Faithwire right here on the CBN News Channel tonight at 9:30 Eastern. Moving now to the coronavirus pandemic. We are nearing 1 million confirmed deaths worldwide from the pandemic. And here in the U.S. alone, more than 204,000 people have died from the virus. 33 states and Puerto Rico are battling a rising number of infections. Wisconsin setting a new record with nearly 3,000 positive cases in one day. The U.S. overall has the highest death toll in the world. And the nation's top infectious disease expert warns we are headed in the wrong direction.
When you're dealing with community spread and you have the kind of congregate setting where people get together, particularly without masks, you're really asking for trouble. Now's the time, actually, to double down.
By the way, Dr. Fauci says he is not advocating for another shutdown, but that Americans need to be very cautious and continue wearing masks and social distancing. In other news, 2 new wildfires exploded overnight in Northern California, scorching nearly 10,000 acres. Mandatory evacuations have been issued for thousands of residents in St. Helena and other parts of Napa County, as flames reportedly reached up to 150 feet high. A utility company cutting power to some 65,000 customers, hoping to prevent new fires from starting. Dozens of structures have already been destroyed.
I feel like the smart thing right now, if you live in St. Helena, would just to go if you can. It's scary to see just how strong the winds are, too, like you're saying. I mean, it's just picking up by the minute. It was what it feels like. And I didn't realize how bad the fires were until you actually come out here and see it.
Firefighters across the state are currently battling at least 25 major blazes. Coming up, the transgender agenda continues to spread as the governor of California signs off on some controversial bills. We will have more on that in just a moment. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back, folks. You're watching the CBN News Channel. California has 2 new laws just signed by Governor Gavin Newsom that has family groups concerned. One requires women's prisons to house biological males who identify as transgender. The other actually creates a fund to pay for transgender treatments and surgeries for minor children. Joining me now is Jonathan Keller with the California Family Council. Jonathan, thank you for coming on the broadcast. Tell us a little bit more about the specifics of these new bills.
Thanks for having me with you today. Unfortunately, this is becoming a pattern in California. We have seen Governor Newsom continuing to do the bidding of the LGBT caucus, largely led by Senator Scott Wiener from the San Francisco area. We've seen bill after bill, this year especially, that is not just advancing so-called LGBT rights, but really going dangerously far into endangering women prisons and endangering minors. As you mentioned, these 2 bills are just the latest in a bevy of legislation, but I think in some ways they're some of the worst that we've seen in any state this year. In particular, I want to point out AB 2218 would essentially allow minor children to obtain not just counseling, but also puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and potentially even life-altering surgeries, amputations, mutilations that could leave them permanently sterile, all before they turn 18.
On this point of the minors, regarding the minors, do you think there will be pushback from any medical providers over minor transgender surgeries, especially from those providers who are religiously affiliated?
Yes, and in fact, we've already seen a great outcry from people in the Christian community. The Christian Medical Dental Association has spoken out strongly in opposition to this. One of California's great endocrinologists, Dr. Michael Laidlaw, has written some phenomenal articles on this issue. At our website, californiafamily.org, we have talked about the fact that, again, these surgeries are not just hormones. They're not just counseling. In some cases, it's actually irreversible. It is something that would lead to them never being able to have biological children again in the future. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, parents, and especially the minor children, are not being given all the facts. And that's why it's so important that as followers of Jesus, we have to speak out in truth and we have to speak out in love and let them know that this is a dangerous path to walk down.
As I mentioned, one of the new laws requires women's prisons to house biological males who identify as transgender. John, I'm curious, what kind of issues could arise in these female prisons that will now house biological males?
Well, I think as Christians, we should always be concerned about justice. We should be concerned about people who have been convicted of a crime. They are still made in the image of God, and they still deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. The great concern with this bill, SB 132, is that it would allow males, biological males, who only identify, just a self-professed identification as a female, to instead be housed in these women's-only facilities. I mean, we can think of all sorts of tragic things. To my knowledge, and the way the bill is written, there really is no restriction based on the type of crime that the male individual was committed of. You could have people who are molesters, even rapists, that if they just identify, not having to have any physical alterations, merely self-professing that they now believe themselves to be men or allow themselves to be women, they would now be eligible for housing at these prisons. I think it really endangers not only the female inmates, but it also endangers the female prison guards. It really is just, frankly, crazy, and I'm honestly shocked that Governor Newsom decided to sign it.
Jonathan, real quickly, last 30 seconds, are there similar bills being signed and looked at in other states that you know of?
There are, and you can find out a lot more about these at our website, californiafamily.org. We've been tracking all of them in California, but unfortunately, what happens in California often doesn't stay there. It does tend to get exported around the rest of the country. So thanks for letting us on today to talk about it. And your listeners, again, californiafamily.org can find out more.
All right, terrific. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast. Jonathan Keller with the California Family Council. Great to have you on the broadcast.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Coming up, 2 massive prayer rallies in our nation's capital this weekend as believers from across the country came together to cry out to God on behalf of America. And pray for its future. We will have that story when we come back. Stay with us, folks.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to the CBN News Channel. Two massive faith events brought a spirit of prayer and praise to the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Saturday. Paul Strand reports on the Return and Washington Prayer March 2020. And he explains why so many Christians felt like they had to come and ask God to forgive America's sins.
Why did America need the return and a day of prayer and repentance?
We're a nation that started out in covenant with God and spread his gospel to the whole world, but now we've spiraled down to legislating immorality, calling evil good, tossing God out of our schools, and killing our own unborn children. The only way to stop the spiral? Repent and return.
We drove God out of our hearts, out of our government, out of our ways, out of our laws, out of the education of our children, out of the public squares.
The only way to stop the spiral downward? Appeal to the one true God.
When you pray, you remember that you're appealing to the highest authority there is. Nobody can go over his head.
We deserve your judgment, Father, but we ask for your grace. We ask for your mercy.
Return our love to you that will stand fearless in the face of evil.
CBN's Gordon Robertson and his father Pat joined in.
We ask you would come and heal our land and take charge. For Lord, we don't know what to do, but our eyes are upon you.
At the same time, Franklin Graham led a prayer march that thronged the Lincoln Memorial and grounds around it with many tens of thousands of prayer warriors. Vice President Mike Pence and his wife joined Graham.
On the President's behalf, I want to say thank you for your prayers. Not only for the first family and our family, but for all of those who serve in positions of authority.
With the crowd too massive to gather around one figure, they broke into prayer circles all over the mall.
We bless our military, we bless our police officers, those who secure peace.
Steve Morgan had a special prayer request.
There'll be a tangible blessing, kind of an earthquake of blessing, if I can put it that way, that will be like tremors that the whole nation will feel as a result of the oneness in prayer that's being experienced today.
I feel something really big coming. I feel another spirit of revival coming, and I'm so excited about it. And my prayer is that all this craziness in 2020 just leads people to God and to question and to real life-changing power that I've experienced personally, and I want it for everyone.
These events and efforts were all to the same purpose, bringing America back to its first love, repenting before a holy God. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Return.
Up next, the story behind a viral video and what inspired. Check it out, this dancing dad. We'll have that story in a moment.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Welcome back to the broadcast. A Texas father is pulling out all the dance moves for a very important audience and a very special reason. Chuck Yielding's 14-year-old son Aiden was diagnosed with leukemia earlier this year. Every Tuesday, Aiden goes to Cook Children's Hospital for his nearly 3-hour chemotherapy treatments. But with COVID-19 restrictions in place, only one parent is allowed to be with him inside. So Chuck walks Aiden to the hospital door, goes back to his car, calls Aiden, gets his dance requests, and lets loose.
It's really hard to wrap your head around. It's a tough situation. One day, I guess he was having a bad time, and I said, hey, check this out. And I just started dancing.
That's pretty cool. The father-son duo has even invented their own dance called the Kulamia. That's pretty cool. Well, folks, that's it for this CBN News edition. We hope you join us again next time. From all of us here, goodbye and God bless.